Hello and welcome to Scrap Mechanic Hide and Seek Spot Guides. Today we'll take a closer look at the Children Yearn for the Mines map, and I'll try to take you through all the spots that I put into it. This was actually the first map that I've ever made, and outside of challenge mode and map creation, I've never actually played Scrap Mechanic at all. And the only reason I ever got into this in the first place is that I enjoyed watching the Multiplayer Monday gang play Hide and Seek on maps that their community made for them. And so I wanted to contribute to that. And if you've somehow managed to find this channel without first finding them, I would really recommend checking out their channels and especially their hide and seek videos. This map is also actually featured in one of their hide and seek videos. So I'll try to remember to put up a pop-up to their channels so you can go check them out. Give them a like and subscribe maybe. Just the way the algorithm works, you know the drill. So yeah. Like I said, this was the first map that I've ever made, and I feel that it shows with some of the choices that I've made in its design. One of the biggest things that I think got misunderstood of how it was intended to be used is the spot gun hint shooting holes that I put in a lot of the spots. First of all, I made the strange decision to use switches to trigger them instead of buttons, despite the fact that they're closing after a time delay by themselves anyways. And in all of the videos that I've seen, nobody realized that that was how they were meant to be used, which I get it. That was a strange decision. But I did like the general idea of how they could be used to troll the seeker a little bit and to put the audio of the audio hint outside of where you're actually hiding. I also made a needlessly complicated timer to count down the hiding time in the seeker room with the digital display and all of the logic in the background, just because I thought it was cool, because I've not done anything else before this and I like logic. But I made another strange decision that I didn't start the challenge timer until the hiding timer was over, so the hiders don't actually know how long they have left to hide. And the entire time while you're waiting, the Jeopardy theme song is running in the background. There also was a lot of effort to make for, I don't think, an equal amount of effect that it got, especially because it gets very old very fast and there's no way to turn it off, which is kind of the point, but also kind of maybe more annoying than it was supposed to be. Also, I tried very hard to make the spots stuck proof, so that you don't have to reset the map because you did something strange with the spots. Except when making more maps and watching more videos, I very soon realized that there was no point to this, because there's always going to be somebody who finds another way to get stuck, which got proven correct at the very first round of seeking on this map on the Multiplayer Monday gang's video on this, where Khan immediately got stuck in a red container because he used it in a way that I wasn't expecting him to use it. Although granted, there's also some design flaws with that spot that I'll talk about in a moment when we actually get to it. But in future maps, I've simply abandoned the idea and left idiocy to its demise, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, this spot is also a spot that I didn't proof as much as I wanted to, because the switch on the catwalk is not supposed to be hittable from inside that room. The only way you're supposed to be able to reach that spot is through the other cave section. And that also caused some discussions in the video, and I did not think about the fact that it was just shootable from in there, and I should have definitely found a better way to prevent that. I simply didn't. There's also a bunch of destructible objects in here that are hiding switches, which I take issue with destructible objects. And I would like there to be a toggle that can decide whether objects are destructible or not, because people are always going to end up destroying them, regardless of how much you tell them not to in the description of the map. And even though I always try to not put any switches on the objects, it's still gonna ruin the experience if you shoot them down. But often there's just no way around it because a lot of the destructible objects actually look pretty good. Now, one thing that I liked that I did here is the audio-visual hints, because the opening of the spot is nowhere near the switch that you use to get in. And I've reused that idea on some future maps as well, but less and less. And instead I've just tried to make the entrance more obvious from the base, or from the area that you're using the switch from. Another thing that's not as perfect as I would like it to be, although I'm not sure if there's a better way to do this in Scrap Mechanic, is the way that I programmed, I guess, the elevator. Because I used logic storage to save the state, like the floor that the elevator is on. And the first thing that I tried ended up not being consistent when you load in the map, because the logic gates just randomly choose in which of the two binary states they want to be in, which meant, I guess I could have left it that way, but then the elevator would have spawned at a random level. So I chose to use a more consistent logic layout, which has the slight disadvantage that if you press the button not for long enough, if it has to be a very short, like basically the shortest press you can do, then it's just not going to react, and instead it's going to just reset to the state that it was previously in. So you kind of just have to press the buttons a little bit longer than you would maybe think you need to. But at least it's then consistent. So that's something. Now, since we are now in the container room, the switch that moves the container up and down, there's been speculation of why there's one outside and one inside. But basically, this is a multi-purpose setup that I have here. So the switch inside is obviously to access the underground spot. And I spent a lot of time making sure that the doors didn't get stuck when going up and down, because they needed to function in all of the scenarios. But the outside switch, which I guess is a good point that I've seen people say, could be used to prevent the hider from locking out the seeker by just leaving the container down, which is something that I did not think about, but makes a lot of sense. But actually what I wanted this to be used as is as a way to get up on top of the containers to access the black container, because the jump that I just did, that was used in the video, I did not know that that was possible, and I've tried very hard to prevent all of the ways to get up there, and I somehow missed that. So if you ignore the fact that that's there, then the red container going down and up again is the only way to actually get up on top of the containers to reach both the spot in the black container and the spots on top of these pipes. So that's the original idea behind this. But yeah, Scrap Mechanic hitboxes are just weird sometimes, and some things you can jump on or interact through or not interact through that you would expect to be able to interact through, which also in a lot of videos that I've seen leads to people thinking they are able to press a switch that they can see despite there being a hitbox over it that's just not actually got any texture on it, I guess. Which I hope is gonna get better when and if they ever release Chapter 2. From what I've seen in the last dev blog, it looks like they want to introduce better hitboxes to a lot of objects. I'm not sure if they're going to overhaul the old objects or if it's just going to be about the new objects though. But I guess I'll have to wait and see. Also, when I watched them go through this maze, I realized that at this point I'd had gotten map creator bias, or whatever you call it, where I thought I already made the maze easy enough because there's not actually that many dead ends and intersections in it. And because I had spent a lot of time in it while making it, I didn't have to think about where I was going. But when I watched them play it, not knowing any of the paths, despite it not being a very hard maze, it still seemed to confuse them a lot and get them stuck more than I thought it would. Which on the one hand is kind of the point of a maze, but on the other hand, I was trying to keep it as simple as possible because I was focusing more on the Mineshaft flavor of it than on the maze part of it. And I already knew that audio hints were going to be confusing enough with the interior setup as is. So I didn't really intend to make it any harder than it needed to be. Another thing that I actually heard Scrapman comment on was the fingers being used when they're not actually pointing at things. The thing is, there is no other vanilla blocks to use for hands of people. So even if I'm not trying to point at something, I like to use the hand just as a hand. It just happens to also be pointing. And then oftentimes, like was the case with the skeleton, I try to make it change the position in a way that eventually it actually means something instead of just always pointing at the right thing. So yeah. Speaking of moving things, I really liked constructing this T-Rex skull. But I very soon found out that bearings have a very tiny limit of blocks that they can move in terms of weight. Same goes for pistons and other stuff. But the result was that I actually had to first of all, turn a lot of the blocks that were formerly concrete into plastic blocks to reduce weight without compromising too much on the texture. But secondly, I also had to split it up in two halves, otherwise it would not have been able to move. And while it may look like it is only for aesthetic fun, I guess, it actually has a functionality. Which is another thing that I think I made too complicated to realize, because I tried to highlight it a little bit. We're going to see that in a moment, but I don't think anybody realized that the T-Rex opening its mouth would actually lead to you being able to reach places that you weren't able to reach before. Now this spot I tried also to compromise a bit because it's so far away from where you enter it. So that's why the switch to get into it is so obvious. If I had also hidden the switch, I think that would have been a very hard spot to find at all. And I'm much happier that they used it at all in the video and that they found it. And I don't think they would have been able to if I had also hidden that switch better. On the other hand, if it hadn't been that obvious, maybe they would have spent more time down here to find more of the other switches. So this is how you're supposed to use the open T-Rex, and the light's supposed to show you that you can get up there and then that you can deactivate and close it again with the switch. And that way you can get to several more hiding spots that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. And then you can also from them open and close it again in case you want to scare whoever else is down there. Now the orange bit at the end of that one tunnel also caused some confusion, which is kind of due to the limits of what I can do in Scrap Mechanic as well. I tried to make it look like lava flowing because we're supposed to be very deep down at this point. But because there's no actual lava to be used in here, that's just what I had to make do with, and I don't think it landed as well as it maybe could have. But that's just creative interpretations that you're gonna have to live with. So yeah, and then this is where the, in my opinion, hardest spot is in all of the map, which is when you've already found the one spot, you have to realize that there's this spot within it as well, which leads to the end of the challenge. And that means you have to realize that you can use the T-Rex to get up into that. You don't have to go over the ribcage into that section, and then you have to also realize that that is not the end of it and there's actually another spot in it, which the switch to that is also very hidden on top of that. which is why I think this was the hardest one, and it was also not found in the video. So yeah, there you go. That's the Children Yearn for the Mines map, and I will be making more videos like this on my other maps in the future. See you then, and bye bye.